Ever wondered who holds the power when your individual rights encounter law enforcement? It's a question that has been at the forefront of many legal debates, and it's one that continues to shape the landscape of our justice system. You see, in the grand scheme of things, it's a delicate balancing act. On one side, you have the rights of the individual, the freedoms and protections that are enshrined in our Constitution. On the other, there's the needs of law enforcement, the institutions tasked with maintaining public safety and order. This balancing act is never more evident than when we talk about the intersection of personal privacy and the search powers of law enforcement. One of the key legal precedents in this area is something known as the Carroll Doctrine. The name might sound a bit formal, but it's an important concept to understand. It's a principle that emerged from a Supreme Court case, Carroll versus the United States, dating back to the Roaring '20s. In essence, the Carroll Doctrine allows law enforcement to search a moving vehicle without a warrant under specific circumstances. This might sound a bit alarming at first, but it's not as straightforward as it seems. The doctrine doesn't give carte blanche to law enforcement. There are conditions, there are checks and balances. It's a principle born out of necessity, a compromise between the need for effective law enforcement and the respect for individual freedoms and rights. But here's the interesting part. While the Carroll Doctrine sets a kind of federal standard, it's not the be-all and end-all. You see, individual state constitutions can, and often do, offer more rights to their citizens than the US Constitution. In other words, the balance of power can tip differently depending on where you are. The Carroll Doctrine, a balancing act between individual rights and law enforcement. But what does it entail? The Carroll Doctrine, a product of the 1925 US Supreme Court case, Carroll v. United States, revolves around three main components. Let's dive into each one. First up, we have the vehicle exception. This component allows law enforcement to search a vehicle without a warrant if they have probable cause to believe it contains evidence of a crime. So, if an officer pulls over a vehicle for a traffic violation and smells marijuana, they have probable cause to search the vehicle. Next, we have the mobility of the vehicle. This aspect is what justifies the lack of a warrant. Imagine a situation where an officer has probable cause to believe a vehicle contains illegal goods. If the officer had to leave to obtain a warrant, the driver could simply drive away, potentially moving or destroying the evidence. The mobility of the vehicle, therefore, allows for immediate action to preserve the evidence. Finally, we have the reduced expectation of privacy in a vehicle compared to a home. The law recognizes that people are more likely to keep personal items and activities private in their homes than in their vehicles. After all, your vehicle is out in public, visible to anyone who passes by. This reduced expectation of privacy is another factor that allows for warrantless searches of vehicles. Each of these components has a deep-rooted legal rationale. The vehicle exception is based on the practical need to prevent the loss of evidence. The mobility of the vehicle reinforces this practical need, adding an element of urgency, and the reduced expectation of privacy reflects societal norms and expectations about what is private and what is not. Now remember, this is the federal standard. Individual state constitutions can offer more rights to their citizens than the US Constitution. So, while the Carroll Doctrine applies nationwide, the specifics can vary from state to state. These components work together to create a doctrine that has significant implications for individual rights and law enforcement. So, what does the Carroll Doctrine mean for you as a citizen and for law enforcement? The Carroll Doctrine, in essence, allows police officers to search your vehicle without a warrant if they have probable cause to believe that it contains evidence of a crime. This can lead to more intrusive searches, and there is a potential for abuses of power. However, it also provides law enforcement with flexibility. It's a vital tool for crime prevention and detection, enabling officers to act swiftly in situations where obtaining a warrant may be impractical or time-consuming. But it's essential to remember that the Carroll Doctrine is not an absolute rule. It's subject to checks and balances to prevent misuse, and legal remedies are available if this power is abused. The Carroll Doctrine, like all legal principles, seeks to balance individual rights and societal needs. But remember, this is a federal standard, and individual state constitutions can offer more rights to their citizens than the US Constitution.